Recognize the Minister of Finance.
Ontario's Finance Minister presenting the province's multi-billion-dollar pre-election budget this afternoon at Queen's Park. It includes promises for transit, healthcare, and the economy, but an election call is expected from the Ford government any day now. So what happens next? Joining us now is Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy. Let's talk about some of the pledges the government made today. What was presented was a nearly $200 billion document with loads of spending on infrastructure, among other things, from your party that had previously promised to rein in government spending. So, how do you accomplish both?
Well, I think first off, good to be with you, Mark. It's a really clear and transparent plan of how we're going to rebuild this economy, how we're going to get better jobs and bigger paychecks, and how we're going to, support workers by providing skills and skills training so they can succeed. And you mentioned infrastructure. We're going to build highways. We're going to build infrastructure right across the province so that people can get out of gridlock and spend more time with their families. It's a plan that reduces costs for people right across Ontario so they can have more money in their pockets. And finally, a plan to stay open, by building more hospitals and building new beds and more nurses and better home care. So it's a plan that we've tabled for all of Ontario, and of course we're taking it to the people, and they'll vote on that budget.
Well, there are plenty of those little nuggets we always expect from a budget offered up for voters in advance of the election, much of which we've heard about before, though, like cutting the gas tax for 6 months, eliminating license plate renewal charges, which you've already done. So what's actually new from what we've seen today?
Well, of course, a lot of it has been announced over the last 4 weeks, but of course, we announced the $158 billion of capital infrastructure spend. I think about the previous Liberals. They had 15 years to build this infrastructure. They talked about it. They didn't get it done. We're actually getting shovels in the ground, Mark, right across the province, from the Ring of Fire, critical minerals in the north, to bringing back manufacturing jobs in Windsor, in Oshawa, in Oakville. And of course, you see it in Toronto, where we're building the subways, we're building public transit. We're actually getting shovels in the ground. So that $158 billion we announced today, and of course to help people with costs, the lower income workers, we gave them the tax break by increasing the qualification for not paying as much in the form of tax and a tax credit, $300 on average for 1.1 million workers in Ontario.
You mentioned the previous Liberal government. The opposition leaders now are suggesting that the money promised is either not enough, like the tax credits you were just referring to, or not enough is being spent in the proper places, such as more for education, among other things. So what do you have to say to that?
Well, they should take a look at the budget and look at the math. I mean, record investments in healthcare to protect our progress and allow Ontario to stay open. Record investments in education, the best childcare deal in all of Canada. We've got money for, as I said, for highways. We're going to build things. We're going to get things done. And, I think about the previous government. They had 15 years. They talked about these things. They debated these things, but they didn't get shovels in the ground. They didn't build long-term care beds. We're building over 30,000 new beds, and we've already started that and getting them completed, like in Durham and at the Ajax Pickering long-term care facility. Shovel in the ground. 13 months later, we cut the ribbon. Normally it takes 7 or 8 years under Premier Ford's leadership. We're getting the job done.
Really quickly before we let you go, all of this is largely seen as a party platform announcement for the election. Is it even realistic for Ontarians to expect action on this?
100%. In fact, we have been getting things done right from the get-go. You can see the Scarborough at McCowan shepherd those. The machinery is there. They're starting to drill. You know, in the 1980s, people talked about building a subway to Scarborough. Premier Doug Ford is actually getting it done, getting those shovels in the ground for prosperity for tomorrow. So I'm very proud, and I stand behind this budget that we tabled today. I can't think of anything better than to have the people of Ontario vote to pass this budget, and we'll retable this budget when we've got a majority after the election.
Minister Bethlenfalvy, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.